we've talked enough about it. I mean, we can certainly go down that route based on potential topic anyway. But
Well, yeah, we can certainly segue into that. I was just going to say, it's I've been bitching about it for years now, and you have the same, you've pointed out the same issues that I've been bitching about, and it's just more of the same.
yeah, it is unfortunate though, because for whatever reason, it seems every company goes through that trajectory. I say for whatever reason. I have plenty of theories there too, but that's a whole different topic.
There's two, well, to transition, so I guess my primary complaints are, so I understand the concept of if you don't make money, you're going to go out of business. But money and the numbers that support making money and healthy margins is not the trump card. No pun intended. It's not the it is by far not the only, it's an important metric, but there are several other metrics that must be considered equally. One of them being employee satisfaction and customer satisfaction. Those two things need to, together, I think they are, there should be a focus on them that helps drive making money, because if all of your customers are unsatisfied, they'll eventually leave you, and you won't have any customers, and you won't make any money. To oversimplify it,
but I mean, we've talked around it in a number of different ways, but it's even more nuanced than that, because there's an approach to maximizing profit that doesn't serve a business well long term at all. I mean, Boeing is a great example.
Oh, yes.
And unfortunately, because of the way the acclamation of wealth works, unless someone tries to keep it in check, like intentionally tries to keep it in check, business will always skew toward maximizing profits.
Yes. And so, I mean, what we're seeing in corporate America, and I have been overusing the figure of speech, the figure of speech of squeezing blood out of the stone, and that continues. The thing that I really liked about this job, like I don't dread, like I've worked a job where I dreaded waking up on Monday, or I've worked a job where it got to the point where I dreaded Monday morning. Sunday night, it was like, it was like tomorrow's Monday, and I dreaded waking up and going to work. And I think most people have experienced that. And so it's a bad feeling. And there's only so long that a person can do that before it's going to be a problem if they don't leave that, find something else. I don't experience that now with this job, but I have noticed that I am looking forward to the weekend more than I was before. Like, I always look for the weekend, and I wasn't ever offering to work on the weekend. I don't want to work on the weekend because I know that that's a great way to burn yourself out. But I do find myself looking forward to the weekend coming more than I did before.
I mean, I think that makes sense. It's the kind of thing that, well, I mean, I don't want to overdo the conversations that we've had, but it's been interesting over the past few days thinking about it from the perspective of like the app that I've been working on, and how do I price it to serve a need, to fulfill the purpose that's meant to fulfill, to be beneficial or cost effective for end users, and still be something that I'm willing to put some level of effort or energy into afterward, and not just leave it at a blank release, which even though this is a different scenario, it's the same concept of considering profit from a business perspective, employee satisfaction being my willingness to continue to work with it based on how things proceed, and then customer satisfaction as well. And it's just it's a calculus that typically is not at the forefront of most people's minds when they approach employment somewhere, because they're focused on whatever has been mandated by the person above. And the primary issue that we see in general is that there's too much acceptance of or acquiescence to the person above and what they mandate, instead of a recognition that some things have to be combative is not quite the right word, argumentative is not quite the right word, but fought for in the corporate environment for the betterment of the company, even in the face of being told to do something, walking the line between providing that fight, so to speak, and being classified insubordinate and having disciplinary action maybe is an extreme ramification there. And the biggest problem is that nobody tries to walk that line most of the time, or is successful walking that line for those who try, or so it seems.
Yeah.
And I had a bunch of jumbled thoughts there too at the same time, and so it was trying to figure out a way to sort of convey it in the different spheres of thinking through things, both from small shop to corporate America, and how maintaining that mindset applies whether you think it does or not. I just kind of blurred it all into one statement, or one set of statements.
I was thinking about, I guess I want to kind of dive into the link, not necessarily the link itself, but talk about, transition, segue to the Gen Z kids, man. They're I don't know if I'm in my head, if I've misrepresented them as far as this kind of vigilante action that we're seeing or that we've seen happen. It was last week, I believe. Yeah, it was about a week ago. 26-year-old kid walked up to the CEO of United Healthcare and assassinated him. Actually, so what would be, it's a bit of a tangent here, but what would be the difference between assassination, gunning down, versus just, shooting?
Technically motive, I suppose. Generally, assassination is used when it's like a contract on someone by another person or agency or something.
Yeah. We talk about John F. Kennedy, like the most recent assassination attempt in the news was, the attempt on President-elect Trump, and that that was just a dude who wanted him gone. So I feel like maybe not gone.
We also tend to use it almost exclusively when talking about like high-profile murder attempts.
Okay, so I would say this. I feel like this is a high-profile murder attempt. So okay, I just want to make sure. I don't know why I'm getting down in the weeds here, but assassination is the right word. I am bogging down this podcast, and I apologize, listeners, including you, co-host.
I think so. You're fine.
Thank you. Yeah. So So I guess the details that are important to me about this assassination success, is that there was a pretty strong message that went along with the assassination, and that was I'm not sure how this was accomplished, but I guess. At least 3 rounds were used in this assassination, and they said Deny, decline,
Deny, defend, depose.
Defend, depose. Yeah, which was the playbook of United Healthcare, and there was a. I apologize for being woefully unprepared, but yeah, it was sort of the you could say the basic playbook of serving United Healthcare serving its customers to avoid paying for medical expenses.
I mean, you could pretty much say it's the healthcare playbook in general as far as insurance companies go. I get that there's a difference specifically because United Healthcare, like the verbiage used was specific to United. But
yeah, deny, delay, and depose.
Okay. But all of the insurance companies typically abide by the same playbook.
Yeah. And as I understand it, United Healthcare is the largest healthcare insurance provider in the United States, and they have a higher denial rate than the other healthcare providers.
I have not done my research for statistics, so I'll have to take your word for it.
Well, I was just going to say I came across that in legitimate reportings, and I don't have it in front of me, and so anyway, what's interesting. I think what's really interesting. So these were facts about the case. The shooter's backpack was full of Monopoly money, which I found hilarious. And I don't know if you saw a picture of the backpack.
I did.
Did you happen to notice the brand?
I did.
Okay.
It was also posted in the Facebook group for the brand.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
What was the general mood about that?
Relatively just matter of fact. Like all the commentary that I saw was just, yep, that's it, or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. I was like, well, use a good quality, use good quality materials. So,
there were a few comments talking about you'd be surprised how much you could fit in the bags, kind of thing as well. So I'm sure if I were to go back and look for it, it's probably devolved further down the normal internet land trolling, but it was fine.
Anyway, it was full of Monopoly money, which I haven't really read anything about the meaning of that, but I take it as this sort of my interpretation of that was that you have all them, you've amassed all this money, and guess what? It's worthless. It's as worthless as this Monopoly money because you're dead. And the whole when I heard about it, like without hearing any details, I just saw the headline that United Healthcare, the CEO of United Healthcare was assassinated. And my first thought was, I'm having a hard time feeling any sort of humanity. I'm feeling bad about it because I already know. Like, I don't have to read anything. I know what the MO of C-suite executives in the healthcare industry are about, and that's making money off of people dying.
I mean, you can pretty much say the same for any C-suite exec out in any industry. As a stereotype for sure, but up until the point of talking about making money off of people dying, because not every industry is, focused on that side effect of what they provide.
Right.
But the main reason I mention it is because how many automotive manufacturers have made calculations on whether to issue a recall and fix a $10 part or deal with the litigation surrounding unfortunate death.
Well, if you'd like to believe the explanation provided by Fight Club, which I don't think is that far off, but I mean it's cynical, but it's like realistic. But it's like if if the recall is more expensive than the the supposed class action lawsuit, then we wait for the class action lawsuit. Like, yeah, it's not about, it's really not hard for me to believe that, whether or not anyone actually does that math, which I have a hard time believing that they don't, but
I can almost guarantee they do.
Right. I just don't have any. I don't have any proof of it, but it's not at all unbelievable. Like, I'd actually be more surprised if somebody said, "Yeah, all of the major automakers in the world don't do that." Like, or if you pick any of the automakers and you tell me that this one doesn't do it, I'd be like, "Nah, I think you're lying to me." So, yeah. Now, whether or not that informs what, if that informs what they do as far as a recall goes, that's another part of it as well. But
yeah, let's shed a little bit of light on it real quick too, though, just because I do know people who have been around those roles, not necessarily directly, but like other people who work in accounting who have explained this to me. It's a very nuanced calculation because you take into account things like the risk of injury, what percentage or how high the risk is, risk of death versus risk of injury versus risk of accidental damage, all those different things, like all of it goes into the calculation, in addition to things like cost of repair, cost of recall, approximation of cost to like brand damage, depending on the optics, whether it's something like spontaneous combustion or, just a door handle falling off. Like there are calculations for all of those different things, and all of those things are considered and roped into a determination on what course of action to take from a business perspective.
Right. And so, yeah, so I think the example that the example, and I didn't specifically point this out, but the example that's given, or the example that I've referenced was recalling a recall that would save somebody's life. Now, I'd like to believe that if there's something that is going to put people's lives in danger, they're going to make the recall regardless, just because that's the right thing. So I don't know a lot of the details around it, but Toyota is doing a recall for its current generation Tundra, which came out, I think the first model year was 2022. And they're it's an engine recall. Like I think it's a block replacement. I'm not 100% sure what it is. I don't know if it's like, they have to replace a part in the engine to resolve some major issue, but like it is an engine. There's an engine recall, and if I'm not mistaken, it might be to replace the engine or replace a significant part of, it's no small thing. And I don't know if it's a significant safety concern, but it's because I believe it's an issue where something is wrong and the engine will damage itself. So, they've also had a recall with some of their trucks and frames rusting through. So both of those are fairly significant, but I didn't see them as life-threatening, but they're just very obvious, and it's easy to be like, well, it would be easy for them to lose a class action lawsuit, which is probably why they did the recall. Anyway, my experience with that sort of thing has been, related to Apple. There's repair extension programs that some of them were announced and made public, and some of them were quiet. Whereas, like, if somebody, somebody would come to the Genius Bar with an issue, and you'd look up the issue, and they'd be out of warranty, and you look, oh, hey, you know what? There's a repair extension program for this, and yeah, sometimes you wouldn't even know it if you weren't looking for it. So that was an interesting was nice to find that and be like, oh, hey, I'm going to, we can fix this for free for you. So, no, what I think is really interesting about this case is that there are, I think, the response from a number of, I know initially it was other healthcare providers increasing, removing information from LinkedIn about their CEOs and increasing security. And at this point, so about a week later, I don't think it's limited to just healthcare companies, but it was interesting because it wasn't the assassination that was the impetus for changing, becoming more security or increasing security, but it was the response from the public. Nobody cares that this man was assassinated. At this point, I haven't come across anybody describing the shooter as the bad guy. I've overwhelmingly come across. We all know the bad guy in this story was the CEO of United Healthcare. I do remember this fact, and that was people identified the type of jacket that the shooter wore, and I think it was Macy's.com had something like in 48 hours had 700 orders placed for the jacket over last weekend.
I wonder if the company that made the backpack saw a spike in orders.
I kind of wondered that as well.
I have two different mindsets, obviously, with regard to the events. Because one, I never want to feel good about someone's death. Just personally, I never want to. I don't necessarily feel one way or another about this one. Again, sure, it's a tragedy. Someone was killed. But what kind of tragedies did he create as a result of other things as well? Is kind of in the back of my mind at the same time. Not saying that that excuses anything one way or another, but at a certain point, it's not awareness that's going to drive change. It's not the same old sob stories that's going to drive change. At a certain point, unfortunately, something that catches attention and is outside the norm is what's going to drive change. We always hope, especially in this country, that you can lobby an effective argument against something at the right place and the right group of people and get noticed and have change effected without violence. But if you want to take humanity's path through history, most significant changes come about because of some sort of violent activity, which is unfortunate, sure. But I think that's part of why also in this particular case, it's kind of difficult, other than anybody who may have directly known him, as a friend, but general populace wise, it's difficult to find people who are sympathetic. Or sympathetic may not even be the right word, empathetic.
Either one.
Well, I think you can be sympathetic to his family's situation and everything else, but not be empathetic with him. So that's the only reason I kind of mentioned that sympathetic might not be the right word.
Yeah. I follow. I just, I don't, there was nothing that, there was nothing, like I don't think this guy's personally, I don't think this guy's a hero. I don't feel bad. I have no negative. I have more negative. It's not really feelings or thoughts. But I view like this story, came about and it's been going on for about a week. And my position when I first heard about it and today remains that I still view the deceased CEO of United Healthcare more negatively than I do the shooter. It's like I look at the shooter and I'm like, yeah, regarding the shooters, like, what do you expect? It's like, there's been decades of corporate distillation and corporate greed and ongoing, increasing the gap between the haves and the have-nots, and just problematic,
just general
just problems
exploitation of the
yes,
working class.
Thank you. Yes, and it's just like, I think that there's. You look at the French; they know all about this kind of thing. They had a proper revolution, and it did involve some folks losing their heads. And I said to my wife that it's like, I think most people want to live a decent life, and the problem is, most people want to try to, resolve issues the right way. But at some point, if you corner an animal, they are going to choose violence because they think that's the only option. I don't know how many, we've had, we've seen decades, especially the last 2 decades, where corporate greed has run amok. We saw in the 2008 financial crisis, all of the executives, leaving their jobs, creating huge. Well, first they made a lot of money, creating a huge mess, and then they left the mess for the working class to clean up, and they made a bunch of money doing that too, and that's just, it's disgusting. And so now you've got, this kid, he grew up with that. Like, that's all he's known. He's lived through an unraveling and into a crisis. So yeah, if this is all he knows, this is all that he's come to expect from people that have attained, have offices in the C-suite, then yeah, I get where he's coming from. I have more empathy for him than I do for the CEO of United Healthcare.
So what's interesting to me, just kind of as just general thoughts and points, talking about how the view that it was kind of, you see it coming, right? Like the recognition or the just general understanding of motive, however you want to wrap that up into a statement. This same feeling is how I look at, or how I've felt with regard to why I don't see the current political trajectory changing without violence either. And it's the same thing with corporations. Like the free market capitalistic economy is not going to change without violence. Lobbyism is not going to change without violence. They're too embedded and enmeshed in how people view the way the country runs or works. And you're reaching a point where people have so little that they can attain anymore that it's more surprising that it didn't start sooner.
Yeah. I had recently watched the movie, and I was reminded of a speech from the movie The Dictator. The character, General Aladdin, is this brutal dictator. The character is drawing upon like Gaddafi and Hussein, and I feel like there are a few others. But at the end of this movie, I think he's in the United States, and I don't think he's addressing the UN. But he is addressing what we would call leaders from democratic nations, and he starts talking about how wonderful a dictatorship is, like what you can do as a dictator. And one of the things, the lines he says when he's talking to them about like the wonder, what things you can get away with being a dictator, or it goes with, and I'll quote it, and it goes, you could let 1% of the people have all of the nation's wealth. You could help your rich friends get richer by cutting their taxes and bailing them out when they gamble and lose. You could ignore the needs of the poor for healthcare and education. Like, it's funny because that's exactly what is happening in a quote democratic country with a free market. We have a number of different ways set up for you to get in touch with us to provide feedback, ask questions, or just comment in about something we've discussed.
You can hit us up on Twitter or Instagram at untitled_hosts, or shoot an email over to untitled.hosts@gmail.com.
Or get in touch directly with Jesse at jthart.com, or get in touch with me, John, via telepathy.
If you would like to support our work or are interested in listening to our new after show feed, head over to patreon.com/theUntitledPodcast and take a look at the options we have set up.
Thank you for listening.
We hope you've enjoyed the show.
And we hope to connect with more of you as we continue this journey.
That's a wrap.